Good evening, everyone. It is November 22nd, 2022. It is 6:19. We've just left executive session. I checked in before, but I'll check in again. Patrick, has this meeting been properly warned?
Yes.
Excellent. This is a special select board meeting to continue budget discussion. And I will start with asking for a motion on the minutes. Jess.
Sure. I move that we approve the minutes of November 1st.
Jess has made a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st. All those in favor? Oh, no, discussion? Yeah? Sorry, I should have asked.
It's a kind of worms. I'm sorry. I don't believe I've seen them.
Oh,
Oh,
are they
yeah,
not in
yeah. I think they were in last meeting's packet.
Oh, yeah, I
Oh,
emailed them with the digital notebook.
huh.
I definitely saw them in previous.
I
meeting,
mean,
too.
I tend to read I'm an analog notebook person.
okay.
They're right here.
Yeah, I believe it digitally. Okay. Maybe this is my bad. And
So,
you guys.
I think that
Abstain.
I would say that this would be a good opportunity for an abstention.
Thanks, Ian. I will abstain from this vote.
Excellent. Any other discussion, edits to the,
Minutes.
thank you, the minutes
November 1st.
from November 1st? Not seeing any, and I don't see any hands. In that case, board members, all those in favor?
I,
And any abstentions?
One,
Yeah.
this one.
So we've got carries 4-0 with one
Little
abstention. Thank you very much.
Asterisk, yes,
We're just working on the volume a little. Great. Okay, then we move on to agenda item 3.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to convey something to Jessica. That's for Liz McLaughlin. If you could,
Oh,
I
I
was
did.
asking to have her name corrected.
Oh, okay.
I did.
She did.
Great, thank you.
It's there.
Sweet.
thank you.
Excellent. So we move on to agenda item 3, which is chair remarks. So I only have one remark tonight, which is just that last meeting I gave a little teaser trailer that we're going to discuss the police budget tonight. But after we had looked at the agenda for this meeting, we learned that Chief Hardy wasn't going to be able to be here in person. And so we wanted to give her and the department an opportunity for the chief to be here. And so we modified our schedule to put the police department budget on for the 6th of 13th.
December 13th.
Oh, thank you. The 13th of December. So sorry about that. And but we thought it was really important to be able to have the chief here. And if you are interested in that budget, make sure you attend on the 13th. And that concludes my chair remarks. So we're going to move on to interim town manager comments.
No comments this evening.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Board comments, committee reports. Liz.
I would like to congratulate our chair, Ian Goodnow, on passing the bar.
Oh, thank you very much, Liz.
And I'm sure the entire select board and community shares that happiness with me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
I'm not going to cheers.
I would like
Yeah, Tim.
to say congratulations on that as well. And our chair also won a 5K recently.
Oh my gosh.
So
You got any?
turning point.
Turning point. Turning point.
And just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving to come.
Oh, definitely.
Thanks. Other comments or committee reports? Nope. Okay. We'll go on to agenda item 6, which is public participation. This is opportunity for the public to speak on any item that's not on the agenda tonight. And we don't have a consent agenda, so there's nothing to discuss there. So I'll look to the room. You want to come on up to the mic and state your name and where you're from for the record?
Well,
Welcome.
I'm Dale Joy,
Hi.
and there's 2 things I wanted to talk about. One was what Patrick Moreland said last week about things like the guy that came from the they're doing a building or something on a site, water treatment or something.
The water treatment
Yeah.
center, the facility.
There's been quite a few items over the years that things like that has happened with, okay? One was the interstate road up here, cost the town another $700,000 because somebody forgot or somebody didn't put the thing in right so that the water could flow. And if they had put that in, they wouldn't have had to tear up the interstate again and redo it. Do you remember that, Patrick? That was a few years back. Then after that, we had a meeting and they were talking about a truck, a town maintenance truck. And they said that the woman she worked for the town, the tall lady that works for I forgot her name. But anyways, she brought up this truck. And she had worked for this business down in Massachusetts before, and that's where she got the truck from. And she said it would cost no more than $98,000. Come back a few weeks later, it ended up costing $150,000, even after she said it wouldn't be any higher than that. So these things happen intermittently. Now, that first one was because they didn't write the contract out properly. Anything extra like that should have cost the people who was putting it in because they're the ones who failed to prevent it from flooding the interstate, okay? But the town had to pay for that instead because it wasn't written in their contract that any mistakes made, But you're a lawyer now, so maybe you can start writing contracts for the town and these businesses.
We have a town attorney to do that for us.
Oh, okay. Well, he was here then.
Okay, all right. So I hear
Anyway,
you.
so that's the
One thing.
one other thing.
Yep.
There was another thing that cost the town money and I forgot it, but there's one more. I left my paper at home because I was remembering all those things through the years that this was not the first mistake. Okay. That for water treatment and that building and the rot and all that. The town makes regular mistakes and we got to learn to write contracts to cover those. Okay. The other issue is the town oversees its businesses, correct?
No.
Yeah, okay, if a business downtown has a contract with people, there was a business over here, it had a contract and it didn't follow their policy, which was that they had so many days to return a product, okay? And they didn't write it down. They actually hid it behind 72 pages of stuff hanging on the wall. But even with that, the person that went in there to get something should have had been able to do a return unless it was said no returns, correct? But that was a few years ago. I had to go to the Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General's office, I mean, to get them to comply. But that was a business right here in this town.
So like consumer protection question, that would be outside of the municipal government's control and the Secretary of State would be.
Okay, so the municipal government only
Attorney
covers
General. Thank you.
what?
We don't control private businesses. State law does. But no, you're talking about like a return policy or something like that.
Or anything that
Correct me if I'm wrong.
where business has a policy,
Anyone's return policy.
Yeah.
where a business has a policy. Town has nothing to do with any of them. So it's always going to be the state.
There's public safety.
Yeah, unless it's something like they're not
Public safety?
unless if they're like need to plow or like, shoveling the sidewalk or
Health
maybe like
concern?
fire safety, maybe.
Like
But that's not really about
That's
about their like business practices necessarily, like a policy about returning an item or what they sell, like merchandising, things
Okay.
like that. That's all outside of the scope because they're a private business.
So why do they pay license here? Why don't they just pay the license to the state?
I'm not really sure what you mean.
The business license.
Business Licenses.
Oh,
Yeah.
They're only $50 for most small businesses, but if
Actually,
you have a license here in this town, wouldn't that the town be partly responsible for things they did that they didn't follow their own policies and procedures for safety?
Well, I'm
I'm-
not the town attorney, but I don't believe we have any role in.
But what we
business
can-
practices
what we can
in
do-
businesses downtown.
Yeah, what we can do though is, I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
but, why
glad
don't
you
we,
said that.
do we have your contact information?
I'll give it to you later.
Excellent. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that we get an answer to you about the control, of what the Brattleboro business license does. Just so we make sure that you're informed and we're informed, which is a great part of public participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can speak a little bit to the business license. I mean, we have a business license that it enables the town to acquire certain information about the property and who's point of contact and things of that nature. We also in applying for the business license, we are anyone who pays for the license and gets their license is afforded $5,000 in exemption for business personal property taxes.
Uh-huh.
So, that covers the vast majority of businesses in town that have, ordinary equipment, business equipment, like your office, for example, is probably not paying business personal property. And they are eligible for that exemption by virtue of the fact that they've acquired a business license, which then enables the town to have contact information and stuff like that for each of the businesses.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Board members, any comments on that?
Would anyone like me to turn the fan
Sure.
off?
That would be
or-
great.
Just-
Okay, I don't see any other hands on Zoom and I only see one other person in the room. Nope.
No.
All right. In that case, I'm gonna move along to agenda item 7, new business A, FY24 budget, and I'm gonna turn it over to Patrick quickly.
Okay, so I just would like to remind the board and the public, we have two budgets from two different departments this evening. We've got the Brattleboro Fire Department, we've got the Brooks Memorial Library, both of whom have independent facilities. And so one of the things I wanted to remind the board and the public about is something said at our earlier budget meeting, and that is about the way in which we address issues like heating, fuel, electricity, utilities, that kind of thing. Those are handled similarly across all of the town facilities. And so with heating fuel, we take the last 5 years actual and average them. And that's tended to keep us, in pretty good shape. There are a lot of factors that come into heating fuel, including, the price of fuel, but of course, weather, and we've been making energy efficiency improvements, but that practice has protected us relatively well over the years. With electricity, we take the most recent years completed and add 4%. With utilities, like water and sewer, we add 6%. And in the fire department and any other department that has vehicles, so this does not include the library, we take things like gasoline and diesel in this environment, and we take the most recent year's actuals, we add 10%. So just wanted to sort of lay the groundwork that, those are not like individual departmental decisions so much as this is how we're going to handle those across the organization as a whole. So with that said.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So we're gonna go to FY24 budget 1, fire. I will invite Chief Howard and AC Kier up to the table of honor.
That begins on page 11 of your budget.
And that's gonna begin on page 11 on your budget for those following along at home.
We're not going to talk about revenue on page 3.
Oh,
We've been through revenue, but we could certainly
We wouldn't,
hit it again.
budget's made of 2 things.
11. The 10 on a new one. Ah.
I'm using the old one.
Me too. Pass it
Good
over.
evening.
Good evening. Long
So-
time no see.
So the proposed fire department budget is $2,306,152, an increase of $144,177, and a 6.5% increase. I'm just going to cover a couple of big things that are on there that I'm sure you've got questions about. And the first one is training. As you all know, we are now a paramedic level service. This is prior to us becoming a transport service with Golden Cross. We went to a paramedic level service. Currently, we have 3 folks in paramedic class. And what I'm budgeting for annually is to send one person a year to paramedic school, which that is between $12,000 to $15,000 to send one person to that training. We also have to meet other training requirements, and just as an example, this spring we had a technical rescue class, a swift water class. Just to have the organization to come in and teach that class was $4,000 for the instructors to come in. That doesn't include the overtime that you're paying staff to go to the class. So that's just one class. We've been, last year we sent basically one shift to the Vermont Fire Academy to do a live fire training day. For us to use the academy, it's between $1,200 and $1,500, and that's with us sharing it with 2 other departments. So again, you can see the price of stuff goes up quickly. So that's why you see an $18,000 increase from the last year's budget. The other big increase is building repairs. And you're probably all sitting there saying you got 2 new facilities. Why is your building repair so high? Well, as you know, Central Station has an elevator, and that elevator has to be inspected quarterly, 4 times a year. And it's $800 each time they come to inspect it. So 8 times 4 is $3,200 a year just for the elevator. Modernized HVAC and heating systems are expensive.
Yeah.
Most recently, the main circulator for the heat at the station that defaulted us at the end of last heating season. So I waited until early fall to replace it. And to replace that circulator was $7,000. Our hood system in the kitchen has to be inspected quarterly. That's $300 a quarter. So that's just to do things to keep up with the inspections and stay up to code. It doesn't let me look ahead to as far as maintaining the building and doing things to it as it is. It's hard to believe, but it's almost been 5 years since we got back into Central Station, and we got to maintain the building. So that's why you see a $7,000 increase in that for 46.7% increase. And the other big increase, and it's up 11%, is vehicle maintenance. And I'm sure you all know, you probably went and bought winter tires. The price of tires have gone through the roof like everything else has, but those are expensive. Each time I send a large piece of apparatus out for service, grease, oil, filter, you're looking at $1,500 to $2,000 at a time. Annual pump testing for all the pumps on the trucks is $3,000. The aerial ladder has to be inspected annually. That's $1,700. Then the service just on the aerial ladder itself is $3,900 a year. And one big thing that's really a maintenance issue is the DEF systems that are on these diesels, which is the emissions on fire trucks. I understand what we're trying to do as far as helping the environment. But these DEF systems on these fire trucks are just nightmares. They're just maintenance. They just gobble up all kinds of money. We just recently had to take one last week, and as I'm sitting here in the meeting tonight, the captain just texted me and says, I hate to tell you this, but now we got another one that's probably gonna go up. Same thing, dealing with that system on the truck. So that's why the increase for maintenance costs. Those are the real big increases. I'm happy to answer any questions that you folks have on different line items, but
All right, I'll open up to the board first. Board members, questions and comments on the fire department proposed budget? I've got a couple, but yes, Daniel.
Yeah, Chief Howard, so looking in kind of salaries and incentives and overtime. We've had conversations about the overtime budget a lot during the financial report since the summer.
Yep.
The amount that we've budgeted is 110,000, which, makes sense based on those previous actuals. I was looking at my phone to try and find the financial report from last month. And I wish I had it in front of me, but I believe we're kind of past
Yeah.
we're
that
past
budgeted
it.
amount right now.
I can actually,
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. So
currently we're at 170,378, 167.
yeah,
Which is 167.
and we budgeted for 102 in FY23. And whilst the percentage increase is large, I know within a sort of $2 million budget, it'll probably work out okay, and we'll
Okay.
figure it out. But I guess I'm kind of wondering about the vision for overtime moving forward. And I did also notice some kind of reductions in overtime in the fire outside overtime, the banner outside overtime, and the rental housing. I wonder if you could just kind of speak to how that all kind of fits together.
The rental housing, currently we had that separated for the part-time inspector.
Yeah.
And we've just put actually, you'll notice that my administrative assistant salaries is, if you look on the budget, it says 0. We've put all salaries under salaries.
Makes sense.
As far as the banner overtime, I kind of looked at what we've been averaging over the last couple of years and felt that we weren't coming close to what we've been budgeting. So I kind of took the actuals and went back to what we've been actually using. So I think that answers your.
Yeah, and then the fire outside overtime, that's
when we for instance, I'll use Gallery Walk. Say Gallery Walk calls us and says they want us to provide EMS coverage for Gallery Walk. So we would send 2 people down to do that. There's an outside overtime rate that we charge for that, which is higher. So, and that's where we would use that overtime for.
okay. And so you feel comfortable with the regular overtime line being 110,000 for FY24?
I do. There's a lot of circumstances that have come on this year. Like I said at our last meeting with the EMS update, we had 4 people out on FMLA. We're down to 2. Of course, vacations July through October. People are off, so we have to hire in because of our minimum manning clause. We've had some new people. We've had 6 new people. We've got 2 more starting. So when we do that, it takes a person that we have them come in and pay them overtime just to work with those new people to get them up to where we're comfortable having them count as a shift member. So that adds to it. Currently, we had a captain that left. So with contractual reasons, we don't have people eligible to be a captain until this coming April. Joe Newton, who's our fire alarm superintendent, has a lot of experience. He came from the floor and went into the fire alarm experience. I had to do what was best for the department. So I took Joe from that floor position and put him in as an acting captain to get us through this time period, it costs us overtime, but it's important that we have the experience leading these people. So that's the biggest thing on our overtime right now. The rest of it's kind of slowing down. The assistant chief today, he schedules, when we know there's going to be overtime shifts, we put out volunteer lists for people to sign up. And today we've drastically cut that back over the next month or so.
Yeah.
My hope is just after Christmas that we can get Joe back onto his regular duties, because obviously those are falling behind as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that overtime will cut back. Trust me, it eats at me a lot, and but I just got to do what's best for these people.
Right. And we're talking about maintaining a safe level of staffing,
That's right.
having experienced people, getting people trained up,
Yep.
So like that all makes sense to me. And I'm not too worried about the dollars. I just, given what we know about this
Yep.
year's actual overtime, I think it just needs an explanation of why we think this is an appropriate number.
Mhm. And I think you said overall, the budget itself is, we're holding good. It's just, and trying to make it hold that.
Yeah.
So.
Got it. Thank you.
Other board members, questions? Jess?
So I noticed that the ambulance services line is not included in the fire department's budget. It is included in the auxiliary services. Page 10 on the new version. I don't know what the old version was. So I just wanna be explicit and clarify.
Mhm.
This is a budget for fire services.
Cut.
Go ahead.
Right, it's like prior to us having Golden Cross as the transport agency, we ran EMS. We did first respond EMS, so we ran EMS. So the cost is still there. It's just the actual cost for the EMS service is in the auxiliary budget. As far as I know, it's always been in there, and Patrick can correct me if that's where the line item up for.
It's not been, excuse me, it has not moved this year. So it's been in auxiliary services the entire time I've worked for the town.
Alright.
Yep.
And so this is what we're thinking before we get the AP Triton report and make any commitments or decisions to anything. This is what next year looks like.
Correct.
Without any of that
Prior to.
information.
Yep.
With the anticipation of continuing this is what the budget looks like as if we are maintaining what we are currently doing.
That's correct.
That's it.
Yeah, I have one quick follow up. No, I think it's a really important clarification. And I actually wanted to ask, so the training budget, because we are now a paramedic level, which is something we were applying for before
Prior
anything with EMS or anything like that. And so our level of training for firefighters to get that level, that's something that we were anticipating no matter what. And that level of paramedics, the number of paramedics we have, that's something we were working on. And no matter where we fall with the report and where this community moves for the EMS, that training level kind of reflects what the fire department wants for our firefighters.
Correct.
Okay. Question for Patrick. Capital equipment replacement program, should the building maintenance as an element of something that's like something we know is like down the road, we're going to need to do maintenance or deferred maintenance work on. Should we be tracking that in a way that's more than just like a line item on a yearly budget?
So for example.
Does my question make sense?
I'm gonna
Okay.
see if I can, I'm not sure. Maybe, well, I'm sure it makes sense. Let me
Yeah.
make sure I understand it. So for example, that building that they occupy is gonna need a new roof someday.
Yes.
Like,
Mhm.
you know,
So perfect example, fire trucks at some point have to be replaced.
Yep.
And so we have a ridiculously beautiful giant chart here at the end here that has all of this stuff in it that we're like, in FY 2034, we're going to probably need to, so we plan for those things. Much like a fire truck, maybe the fire station roof needs to be replaced and we know a general idea when that is. Is there any reason why we couldn't treat that kind of building maintenance in the same way as the capital equipment replacement program?
so I don't want to say yes or no to that,
Fair enough.
but let me see if I can share some background. So Peter Elwell, who you may recall, was here. Yeah. Nice guy, lives nearby. He was here for 7 years. And in the period of time that he was here, we were able to put together that, 25-year capital equipment replacement program. And the whole purpose of that was not so much to be able to show, hey, look, we're thinking about buying things in, 2037 and beyond, but was to, take a known universe of equipment and plan for its replacement over time in such a way the expense to the taxpayer was not, fluctuating wildly up and down and creating big waves like that, but to try and level it out so that it was slow and steady over time. We were, I believe, largely successful at that. It's not a perfect plan, but it's a great start. And setting aside money every year for the inevitable replacement of fire trucks is an inherently good thing to do. We can buy fire trucks without having to borrow for them, and they don't crowd out everything else in that particular replacement year.
Yeah. If
If you start adding up all of the capital projects, which we have not done, it would be a massive list and a massive undertaking, and I'm not sure we're always ready to commit to all those things. So sometimes those come on our radar, 5-10 years out, and we see this is coming. We're having some, leaking in the roof at such and such, but sometimes we can nurse it along. I guess my answer to you is we don't have a complete list of all, facility replacements, every retaining wall, every, this, that, and the other. We just don't have that. We haven't maintained it.
Totally understand that we don't
So,
have it.
could
I'm
we?
asking, could we, and would it be better for our town's budgetary health if we were? Or is it the kind of thing where
I
it's like,
think the staggering cost would frighten us. And I mean that truthfully. I mean, maybe it's something we should be prepared to take a closer look at. But it would be an undertaking, and it would be it'd be a little startling for sure.
yeah, I mean, knowing about things helps to not be scared of them anymore.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, we have a capital projects list, which is 5 years out, and it is not what I would call comprehensive, but, working through the process with all the management team to sort of help identify, what's coming. Would we have had the skating rink roof on a replacement in this general time frame?
Mhm.
It's a 50-year-old roof, but it's time. Roof here is pretty good, but we don't have it down quite scientifically as we do with the equipment replacement program, in part because the equipment replacement is like, okay, how many years do you want to run a truck? And you can sort of plan it out that way. How many years do you want to run a roof?
It's a little bit less.
Somewhat subjective
It's
as
a little
well.
subjective. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, depending on the type of roof, for instance.
Yeah.
You don't just go replace a slate roof.
Yeah. Okay. I won't. Yeah.
It's certainly something in the years to come we can explore more thoroughly, or more quickly if you find it.
Yeah. No, I just think, yeah, it's interesting. Okay. Liz?
Yeah, I just wanted to pursue that line of comment a little bit more. I mean, it's it's a capital expenditure, the equipment, it's kind of an easy accounting procedure to understand. But maintenance, by definition, is not a capital project. So, you know,
Fair
the
enough.
ongoing maintenance in an older municipality, that's what we're all about. You know, I mean, older towns with older buildings and infrastructure, you know, we have to kind of see how it goes in terms of what the priorities are. Like if a water main breaks or something is leaking, like we'll know somewhat in advance, but we need to discuss that as part of our select board responsibilities to understand what the priorities are, what the needs are as they occur. And I mean, we can understand that all of our buildings will need maintenance, but you can't put that in a capital budget. I don't think.
Yeah, fair, Liz. Daniel?
Yeah, I appreciate both of these comments. I think that they are helpful in thinking about ways in which this budget could be better. You know, this budget will work out just fine, right, in FY24. We'll argue over some small pieces of it, but for the most part, this will work. And I think that perspective on, like, you know, what is a capital project, like a roof replacement, right? That's a little more than maintenance. But Liz's point about, you know, the kind of maintenance buildings need. I mean, I'm sure most of us know that, you know, with our vehicles or homes or what have you, that you're forever forking out money, and there are maintenance lines in these parts of the budget, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, we've got how many buildings? Like 10 or something? They've each got a roof on them. We should at least have an eyeball on, like, hey, when are these roofs going to need to be replaced?
Because it's like
And-
much more expensive and.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's like worth considering as we move forward. I don't think it's like a burning thing for like this budget cycle, but I don't think we should lose sight of that.
Jess?
Particularly for our new buildings. Both of the fire stations are new
Police.
ones. Police department, the new water treatment facility, maybe whatever rec center buildings get built in the next couple of years. As we build new things, it would be nice to have a good, clean plan to take care of them and make sure they last.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure they last, period. May I ask another question?
I just want to make sure, Tim, you're good for the moment.
No, I had a sort of a less important line by line question, but
Whatever.
See Liz's digital hand. I wonder.
Liz, is your digital hand still up?
It's up because I just wanted to include the fact that we have the sustainability money that might affect on a case-by-case basis, a project, its maintenance, and a new roof that might be a solar roof, et cetera.
Hmm. Cool.
Another layer.
Another layer. Jess?
So I guess this kind of goes to training, but kind of is just a thing I heard on the news today was that the state of New Hampshire, our lovely neighbors, just announced that they were investing in training for ambulance service providers across their state. So they've got a few $1 million now allocated and approved to be used by ambulance service providers to help train EMTs and paramedics to support that sector because they have such a workforce shortage across the state. And I got my fingers crossed that the state of Vermont might consider something similar, but.
Currently, we have 3 people in EMT class, and we were able to use the voucher system that the state currently has, but we don't know how long that system or how long they're going to have that system. But we were able to take advantage of it on our last 3 peoples.
Daniel?
Would you mind just explaining that for my benefit
So,
and the public?
Yep. So basically, say the class was roughly around $1,200. The voucher covered $1,000 of it, so we had to pay $200 of it, which is very good. And,
Good deal.
you know, maybe hopefully they'll keep that, but I think we all know that probably eventually they won't have it. And
It's a good thing to reach
But
out
there are
to. our
legislators
on.
to talk to about
Right.
that,
Yeah.
right? That then just happen.
Yep.
Tim?
Yeah, and I've got this memory of, maybe I asked this question 5 years ago and got a perfectly good answer. I get tripped up when I see propane, gasoline, diesel, electric utilities. How do we heat over in fire?
Both stations are propane.
Both are propane. So when I'm looking at propane, that's what I'm looking at, heating?
Yep.
Okay, that's helpful. And then utilities is what, there
Water
are the
and sewer.
utilities not listed in the,
Water and sewer and probably electricity.
well, you have an electric line, so that's.
So
what
it's water and sewer.
Okay. All right.
Do you think we should rename it then, water and sewer?
Would you like that?
I mean, I actually would, I
truly
feel
what it is.
stronger about propane heating, something like that, just to make it clear that the propane,
Patrick?
unless it's
or-
also used for cook stoves, then I guess you could.
I'm sure it is.
It is, but
Okay.
Propane cooking and heating?
sure.
What about hot water? How is hot water heated?
Hot
just-
water,
propane.
cooking and heating? Is that?
Propane for.
You know, there's
domestic
room on the
water
line, so let's just say propane heating
Yeah.
/ cooking.
Slash water.
Cooking is heating.
Okay, would you, would you
But
like
the
it to be
utilities.
propane heating?
Yeah.
Okay,
/ cooking.
Patrick can I ask that we modify the line?
I think so.
Cool.
Yeah. I just don't have any
A
objection.
future board member will be confused also
Right.
when they see,
I think every year we.
when they
Sort of
see
people-
utilities,
Yeah.
Cook.
And
they might want to
That's,
see utilities, water, sewer or something.
And I think just to take a moment here, like, this is the opportunity for the select board to review the budget in all of its facets, which include the really big questions, like about like, should we be talking about buildings and putting them in some sort of maintenance plan? And also little things like our individual line item language, is it accurate and does it depict what we're actually talking about?
Sure.
And we should be, taking time to discuss all those things. So I appreciate the question and I think it's important. Did you have more?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Wow. Yeah,
Let
that
me-
was really nice.
Let me add on to that.
Yes.
This budget is both a document that we look at,
Yes.
town meeting looks at, and the wider community looks at. And so it should be,
Clear.
it
as possible.
really should be obvious. You should, you should never have to like guess at what a line of it means.
Because this is about transparency. Yes. I have another question, board. Someone else does? No. The chief, the emission system on the back of the fire trucks. What was the term?
It's called a DEF system.
A DEF system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Diesel
is,
exhaust fluid, basically it makes less emissions to going into the air when
Yep.
the truck is run.
That's the sign at the, at one of the gas stations on the roundabout. I had no idea what that meant.
Yes.
Yes,
There's
sold
a separate
here.
tank
Yeah.
that we have to put the fluid in. That's right next to where you put the diesel into the truck.
Yep.
And it regenerates and burns off at a certain time. Fire trucks are a different animal, and prior to them getting this type of system worked out, before actually putting them in the apparatus, didn't happen. So now we're kind of playing, seeing how it goes and seeing what we need to do. And it just once the light comes on in the truck won't run to full capacity. So we have to take it to a dealership, which the one we go to is in Westminster, and because they're a dealer for a particular engine that's in the truck.
This sounds like my printer when you run out of magenta and you can't print anything.
Yeah.
Does anybody else run into this? It's ridiculous.
so
I sound like a
Consider
stand-up
grace.
comedian right now, so I'm going to shut up.
so my question was, obviously this community
It's true.
really values the
Yeah.
fact that we are in all the ways that the municipal government provides services and facilities. We're trying to be green and we're trying to always lower our carbon emission and footprint. So my question is this DEF system the only system that exists for fire trucks to reduce the carbon emission? And if it isn't, is there a better one? And if there was a better one, how much does it cost? And should we consider investing in it?
The DEF system is the only one.
Okay.
They just recently came out with an electric fire truck. I
Oh my
don't
God.
really want to be the
let's.
guinea pig, of
Pig.
taking the
That's
first
what it is.
couple of them,
Yeah.
but they are very expensive, like electric cars are.
So that's interesting. So, yeah, could we think
Just let
about,
that go by.
should I just let that go by? Yeah, okay. We'll let that one go by. Fair enough. Okay, that was my question.
Pocketed
Yes.
communities that will trial those.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alternatively,
Yes.
is it worth considering how expensive this dev system is to maintain? And thinking about if that might be put to better use in a different sustainability initiative?
Oh, like not using it on the fire trucks and just letting the emissions go?
I know, isn't that a crazy idea?
You can't
sure
do
it's
that 'cause
regulated.
Federal.
Okay.
Yeah. Daniel?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So I recall way back when John Allen was very excited about how the fire truck would back in and this thing would like sort of clamp on to the fire. Please fill me in when I get it wrong. You remember, right, Kate? And
That's the exhaust system.
That's exactly.
okay, so we're talking about something different
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah, that's when the truck's backing.
Okay, because my understanding of that was
Oh,
like
it's the
that
tubing that
made
goes
it
down
a
and-
safer environment for people to work
It
in,
is very
Yeah.
cool.
you know, which is
It is.
important.
Makes a lot of noise.
And so this other system is like
It's actually on the truck itself.
an emissions reduction system
going down
on
the
the
road.
truck. Okay. All right, John, if you're watching, that's what's going on. Okay, and so there's really no way around it. We just need to maintain that system and it kind of,
We're all
Causes
dealing with
problems.
all fire departments that
Yeah.
have this one.
it's sort of like the way in which your vehicle is now just a computer and when a light comes on, it costs a couple of grand.
You got it.
Yeah.
Something we definitely have to do.
All right.
See, I beat Liz to that.
Thanks.
Board members, other questions before I turn it over to public questions and comments? Seeing none at the moment. And I don't see any hands on Zoom. Is there anyone in the room that has any questions?
I am shocked.
Oh, I do see Bob Ozer. I also knew it.
We all know.
No.
I'm excited. He's got a good question.
Bob,
This is the time for questions.
And there we are. So I'll take your call and I'll try to just make a very brief comment.
no, no worries.
But we talked a little bit about the training that was associated with paramedic. We talked a little bit about, and I think that's the only thing we really talked about. I see a line item for medical supplies, which is new. We had talked at one of the select board meetings about medical oversight and had talked about the fact that that was going to be there anyway. But for planning purposes, and the budget is really a planning document, for looking down the line at costs and what costs are associated with a particular program, wouldn't it make sense to sort of aggregate those costs which are associated with the EMS piece of the fire department in one place on that spreadsheet? And so you have a general idea of what that's going to cost and what your next steps might be once you know that. And I think we had some discussion at the board about that in the past, and maybe that's a good discussion point for now or down the road. And that was my only comment.
Whew. Thank you very much, Bob, and I appreciate all of your comments. So, and this one as well. And I'm actually going to take it first. We know that we were going to have the medical oversight because we were applying to be a paramedic level operation beforehand, any kind of EMS decision, and we are going to continue to be one. And so that is all incorporated within the fire department. And so it's my opinion that it makes sense that it continues to be in the fire department budget line item by item. I'll turn it over to
Just a clarifying question. So we are talking about medical supplies that are associated with our newly acquired paramedic status,
And
correct?
stuff that we use to maintain.
Which
our
is why
kits.
it wasn't in the budget before.
Before, it used to come out of operating supplies. and
Oh, so just more accurate.
So it's just a kind of, some of the
Exactly.
dollars that used to be in operating supplies now have a clearer
Yep.
line.
Yeah.
Which is good, because we've done that in lots of other places in the budget as well.
And where, and is there,
So,
But operating supplies went from 40 to 18 with medical starting at 10. You happen to know what happened to the rest? Did it go into the other categories?
good deal.
It's 2022, there was a,
The operating supplies,
Oh. Yes, it's just a blur.
that's where we make things more specific. The reason that the 40,000 was in there, as you see it last year, is because our software program that for our reporting system and all our records, we were notified by the company that we had that they were no longer gonna be serving what they're serving, so we had to make a decision to go to another service, which we did. In talking with Kim, we just opted to make that line item to pay for. We opted to make the operating supply line item show that cost.
Mhm.
That one time, so in the future, it'll.
So regardless of where operating supplies medical supplies sits in the future,
Mhm.
it is a specifically
Specific.
EMS
Correct.
line item that
Yep.
anybody who's trying to calculate that separately can do that.
And as far as what Bob was asking was a breakdown of what EMS overtime is gonna be. I'm very hopeful that when the study comes, the study's gonna show, okay, you can expect this much overtime for EMS specifically. So I think maybe that when that report comes out, it'll be detailed.
Yeah, that would be great to have.
I've got another, oh, I go room next. We did Zoom, now we got room.
Zoom room.
I need to ask a question, but something came up. Kate O'Connor from Brattleboro. Earlier on, you can gong me and say this isn't a relevant point to bring this up. But when we were talking about the, paramedic classes for 27,000 and the AEMT for 6,000, the 52,000 for collective bargaining, and then the 16,000 for physician assistants, we weren't clear at that time where we were getting that money. Has that been established yet, or am I this is not the place to ask it? Maybe it's in December or something. Remember, it wasn't in the FY23 budget. So I'm just wondering, have we determined where it's coming out of 23 since we're adding it into some of it's into 24? And again, this might not be the appropriate time to ask that question.
If we're looking at the FY24 budget, talking about maybe it might be easier to answer. I don't have the answer for that now. Patrick, if I looked to you on trying to provide an answer for that now, is it something that we could, or would it be better for December?
May I ask if I understand the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you
Okay.
throw those
So-
out again?
Do you want to just come back up and, thanks, Kate.
These things were brought to the board, these expenditures for the collective bargaining, the
Mhm.
extra 52
Mhm.
and the doctors, even though we said it was going to happen anyway, but it was a new expenditure that you folks had to approve. And then the money for the training that we had to approve, and
Yep.
this were all new spending for FY23 that was
Yep.
not included in the FY23 budget.
Yep.
And the question was, where is that money coming from? And I remember something like, well, we'll have to figure that out.
So the answer to that is almost that there is no answer. And maybe that's not the right way to say it, but so in the end, we've got to successfully manage the operations of the town such that we keep within the bottom line budget, right? As you know, as everybody knows from watching past performance, it's rare that any one individual line item hits its target exactly. It does happen sometimes, but on the whole, as we have accepted, certain additional expenses, like you say, we've provided some additional wages to the staff and, in exchange for the new work that they've undertaken. We, as the management team and the board as the elected body, need to see to it that when we conclude at the end of fiscal 23, we haven't overspent. That's something I keep in mind. I know it's something the board keeps in mind. There's no specific, we're not going to clear the snow this year because, we need to be able to afford the folks at the fire department. But exactly where, it's a little early in the year. We haven't, I think the answer is, we are focused on the bottom line and not exceeding the budget as a whole.
Jess, and then I've got another hand on.
Yeah, just a
Daniel?
follow-up question to Kate's question.
Question to a question.
Not to Kate, to y'all.
Oh.
So thinking about that medical supervision item, I'm just wondering where that might fall in the line items that we see here on the budget.
So a couple of things, I think the chief can hit that. One of the things I want to remind everybody is that this year is a more expensive year than we anticipate future years to be. In part because this is a year that we're making more of a transition. So I think you'll recall when Dr. Storn was here, he was indicating that this is going to be a big year. This is going to likely cut itself in half or something like that in future years. And if I understand correctly, Chief, we're putting that to operating supplies?
Okay.
So maybe that should have a different name to be more accurate.
Clark, I don't quite know.
There is a natural tension that I would suggest, that it's difficult to get right. We can slice and dice and create more and more and more line items so as to be more and more and more clear. New finance director and I have been working to try and sort of clean up line items. And in fact, to keep the spread, let's say, the inclination to separate everything out. Good example of that has been clerical, right? That is a staff person, right? And in some departments, not all, that clerical line has been identified. Now, I'm not really sure at what point in time that was useful information. But there hasn't been anybody working within the town that has said, oh, it's important for us to recognize, how much are we spending on clerical? So, in an effort to try and keep things moving towards greater efficiency and which is sort of maybe less specificity, we've been working towards eliminating line items where possible. If things like, if something comes along and the board says, yeah, but wouldn't it be great if we could identify that, if we show that so that people can see that, the direction would be much appreciated, and we'll make sure to, add and clarify wherever, just like we did, utilities are water and sewer.
Well, I feel like then I think it makes a lot of sense to do exactly that in this instance.
Okay.
Right. Like if I'm understanding correctly, the 10 grand incorporates the Dr. Storn oversight that we need for having a paramedic level license, and that Dr. Storn indicated to the board that he anticipates that being less in future years because this first year, your first one, we want a lot of hours, 80 hours, right, a week or something like that, or a month or something. And so we're gonna probably do less in the future. So office supplies, I don't think is a
I think it was in operating support.
operating supplies. Okay, operating supplies. Yeah, I don't know if that's sufficiently clear to me, but that's just my opinion.
Yes.
Well, I think.
I don't know. It may not be useful going forward, but it's certainly useful for
I'm going to let the board keep talking on this issue for the moment. Thank you.
the blip of time, the special time we're in right now, when we're trying to examine these effects, cause and effects carefully is not the time to be trying to reduce line items within this budget. Within this department's budget
Yeah.
is
Agreed.
all I'm gonna advocate for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
Agree.
we don't have to bloat it out to every single,
Right.
thing that we think of, but if it helps the public and us evaluate, how this teases out during this period, I think so.
Yeah.
I
Daniel?
have like three things to say next.
Okay.
Thing number one, going back to what Kate was referring to, which were unbudgeted expenses in the current year, which is FY23, right? And so the place to monitor those is in the monthly financial report. Monthly financial report shows that our expenditures are on track with where they should be, which is great because it's a $21 million budget, so you can afford, a little bit of leeway here or there on the odd line item. Then this question of operating supplies. So my question would be operating supplies budgeted at 18,000 in FY24 and in FY23. If we could get more detail about what that line is composed of in its current budget year and in its proposed FY24 budget year, I think that might help us understand whether we should name it something different.
So
I'm
let's,
assuming it's not all one thing.
add that as a flag.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the third thing, I just kind of want to thank what Patrick said about clerical, and you also see it in auxiliary staff. Those are both staff things, right? And now they're in staff and salaries because that's what they are. And maybe there's a little sexism there in the clerical line.
It's a little what?
A little sexism perhaps in the clerical line going back in history. Who knows? But thank you.
Other board members, in that case, is that hand went down? Oh, okay. There's a hand in the,
The interpreter couldn't hear the question. Could it get repeated, please?
yeah, go up to the mic.
Just wanted more clarification on what Kate had said about where that money was gonna come from. That's all.
I think Patrick
Thank you.
pretty much spoke to it.
He said he didn't.
No, that's not what he
it's not
said.
I don't think that's fair. What I would say, if I wanted to try and take another stab at it or take another swing at it, is we're not focused in our management on individual line items so much as the bottom line. We need to make sure that, for the 21 million or 20 million dollar budget that fiscal 23 is, that we don't spend more money than was budgeted. Over the course of a given fiscal year, there's going to be a lot of things that come in over. Fire overtime is one example. There are some places where, we can achieve savings. We don't always know where those are going to be. Sometimes we have a year where there's not a lot of snow and we can receive a good deal of savings there. It's a little early in the year to be identifying where, but I will tell you that, as a manager, I'm concerned. I know there's some things we need to account for, just those types of things. So I'm going to be on the lookout and we're going to continue to manage, and keep an eye. And the closer we get to the end of the fiscal year, as things start to come into sharper focus, we're going to ramp up our attention to, we can't overshoot the bottom line. So the exact line item from which there will be savings, can't identify at this point in time.
Is that a good answer to you?
He's looking for savings. I'm looking for where's the money?
Again, the interpreter cannot hear. Could you please go to the microphone? Thank you.
I was looking.
That's
for-
my fault. I'm sorry.
I wasn't looking for the expenses. I was looking, well, yeah, I am in a way, looking for where, if you had to go over, where is the money gonna come from? Because we're gonna be paying 3 times the amount for diesel in a matter of a month here shortly. we're gonna be paying out a lot more than we thought for just keeping the buildings warm.
Mhm.
We're gonna be paying through the nose over the next 3 or 4 months. And that in itself, where would, what, you used to have so much set aside. Do you still have that?
Yes, ma'am. So I think the answer to that question is if we were to exceed the budget, are there sufficient, let's say, reserve resources in order to not default? And I think the answer to that is yes. The board adhering to its guideline of setting aside 10% of the year's budget of what's called unassigned general fund balance is certainly available. We would need to go to town meeting and sort of ask for forgiveness for overshooting the budget. But presumably we would have a worthy justification for that.
Okay.
And we would seek their ratification.
Before you used to have like $1 million in set aside. Okay, you have about the same now.
About 2. At this point in time, it's closer on 2.
Oh, excellent. Okay. I just didn't want to freeze this one.
No, it's good. And yeah, it's a really good opportunity to talk about these elements of the budget that, it's complicated and many parts are moving. And yeah, and it's kind of interesting to be talking about FY24, which is what we're doing right now. But then every month we're talking about FY23 and like where we're at. We're taking a snapshot of like, how is the town doing? And that's the other time we can be looking at these unexpected or unbudgeted expenditures and things like that. Daniel.
And the answer to the question is the town is doing fine. With specific regards to heating expenses, we have already arranged for our heating oil for the year at an excellent price. So that's great. It's an excellent price for every other person in the world apart from Tim Wessel, who somehow magically got a better price. And the monthly financial report is the place to look for wait, are we on track here or are we going to be in bad shape? And we have it on the agenda every month.
And God bless my fellow board members who decided that we should put it on every month we should put it on the agenda, and it shouldn't be just in the consent agenda. It should be there to actually discuss, because it's a really important element of transparency for how the current budget year is doing. And so, we have our great financial director come up and talk about it. And, she gives a good little report, and then board members either have lots of questions usually, or occasionally they don't. And yeah, so I'd also encourage these questions to come up during our discussion of the monthly report have we done November already?
Yeah,
okay.
We did.
God bless Tim.
God bless Tim.
What?
And me.
God bless
And Dave, I couldn't
you.
actually remember who it was.
Bless us, everyone.
But I appreciate the questions. Any other board members at this point? I don't see anybody else in Zoom. So so we had a couple of things flagged, and this is actually, I'm going to pause for 1 second. Is there anything else that select board members want to flag right now to bring up again at the end of our initial round of budget discussions? Don't see any.
No.
Oh, I did have a really obvious question. Do we know when we're going to receive the EMS feasibility report? Because that has potential for budgetary implications.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really on. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fire department.
December 20th is when he's planning to be at the.
Okay.
Well, there we go.
December
That's the
20th. You
first
heard
time
it
we've
here
heard
first.
that. Okay.
One whole month.
Okay.
All right.
In that
Merry
case,
Christmas.
Chief Howard, AC Kier, thank you so much for coming and presenting. Have another great budget year.
Yeah. Yes, have a nice Thanksgiving.
Yay, library is next.
Def Jam.
What's that?
Def Jam. That's what that was. A Def Jam.
Learned
a lot about Def.
Oh, nice.
Jam is an old music label.
Yes.
That before my time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on to new business agenda item A2, the library budget for FY24, and I'll invite up to the table of honor Star Electronica.
Oh, sure. Take your pick, yellow or clear.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah, the yellow one's from Kipling's.
Oh,
Oh,
from old kids. I was about to ask.
Yeah,
they need,
I didn't lift
Have you
it
had
on
it?
my way out.
Well, you're out of that thing.
no, they can't do that in Vermont.
Oh, you can't picture?
Cannot get a full-size picture in Vermont.
You can. in
All right.
Okay.
Side talk.
You good with that chair?
I
Oh my
was-
gosh.
Chair.
I feel like it's
Try the other one.
Here, I'll take the, yeah.
See, this is where we save on maintenance costs.
Right, now I can
The
see.
chief looked short too.
Okay, so we're gonna look at page 10. And
Yes, page 10.
thank you, Liz. Did you have anything on? No, sir. Okay, I'll pass it over.
So first, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me come and talk about the library. You know, I wouldn't miss this for the world. So I'm grateful for your attention and your interest. And I know you are all interested because I've seen all of you on the premises from time to time, some very recently. With your permission, I'd just like to have a few opening remarks about the climate of the library these days.
Please.
So we've seen a lot of increases in the last several years in the time that I've been here, which has been over 6 years. We've increased our resources, we've increased our services, we've increased our spaces, and we've even increased our hours by not closing on summer Saturday afternoons and by having programs after hours and sometimes doing work after hours because we can't squeeze it to our open hours. And in fact, we had a program a couple of weeks ago that over 100 people came to attend on a Thursday night when we were closed. So we keep broadening, we keep expanding, and we have even created a small meeting room, which is in almost constant demand. We created a space for teens and we created a space for confidential appointments, personal appointments with both our reference person and our technical services assistant, or our technology assistant. And part of the way we could do that is that we increased our partnership with other community agencies and organizations. And so, it's many hands helping one another. And while that has expanded our ability to serve people and increased our base of resources, it also takes a lot of staff time to do those sorts of things. And we've seen a real increase in the width, in the breadth and the depth and the length of our interactions with patrons. This is something that's really happened the last couple of years, that we used to be a lot, we used to be about 50-50 transactional and relationship based. And now it's all about relationships. People, even when they come in just to check out a few books, they're hungry for human interaction and they're coming to the library for it. And and then we've also seen, out in the community, because many of us are out frequently in the community, we've seen a lot of increases in the community as well. We've seen increased needs, but we've also seen increased excitement and expectations around the library. And we've seen increased suggestions because there's no shortage of good ideas in this town. But what hasn't increased at all, in any significant manner, is our staff capacity. So we have an added staff, and our staff is fantastic. And it is truly our greatest resource. And those of you that go to the library know that. And they have really stretched and struggled to meet those needs by continually, they're always honing their skills, they're extending their services, they're taking on added responsibilities. So I'm going to talk about a few of them. So when I first came here, the electronic services position was a halftime position, and it was somebody who was making under $14 an hour. And now, so it was halftime electronic services and halftime circulation. Now our electronic services person, Matt, is one of the most sought after individuals in town. I have been stopped. I stopped counting how many times I've been stopped in the grocery store for people telling me about their gratitude for Matt's service. He is legendary. He is knowledgeable and he's patient and he handles all the library technology as well, which is, a full-time position in itself. And speaking of legendary, who has met our teen librarian, Chloe, because she is remarkable. And hers essentially was a halftime position as well. There was no teen services program when she came on board. That she has designed this. She has developed a wonderful, wonderful rapport with the teens in this community and the other adult allies that work with them. She has developed a robust teen advisory board and programs, and the programs range from writing workshops that the teens design themselves to teen game nights where 40 kids showed up for a teen game night, again after hours. And what I loved is they played old-fashioned board games. And one game that they played was they sat along the long corridor upstairs, 40 kids, and played the game of telephone.
Oh,
so how awesome, right? So both of these people are paraprofessionals. They work they have really developed these services for our library. And then there is our crackerjack reference librarian, Jean, who is absolutely the best I have ever worked with. And I have worked with excellent librarians, and really there is no one that can hold a candle to her. And anybody who has ever asked her a question will back me up on this. And one of the things that Jean instituted in the time that I've been here is that she initiated our participation in the Candid software, which is the Foundation Center. And that is, we're the only site in Vermont that offers it. And we get grant seekers from all over the region that come in and use it. And just in this year alone, her work with people seeking grants has increased from 288 for the year to 935. So this is amazing that she is really supporting these not-for-profits in this area. Miss Lindsay, our children's librarian, has already left an indelible mark on a decade worth of kids and their parents. And then those kids develop into strong readers, thanks to her guidance. Behind the scenes, we have our cataloger, Leslie, who is an acknowledged expert in this state and whose advice is frequently sought from afar. And she makes it possible for us to find the most obscure texts with just a few nebulous clues. She hasn't quite mastered that thing where you could say, no, it was a red book and it's about this thick and I got it from over there. It was 10 years ago. What is it? So, someday somebody will capture the algorithm to do that, I suppose. And then Jenny, our circulation manager and volunteer coordinator, and we do depend a lot on volunteers, has a big heart and purple hair. So you may have seen her. And she is one of the most empathetic people I've ever met. And she will go to any length to make patrons and volunteers feel not just welcome, but truly valued. Then there is Jen and Mary Beth that do the work of processing and interlibrary loan, and interlibrary loan has more than doubled in the last year as well. People really got the memo on that we can get you anything from anywhere, just ask us. But really, it's our incredible desk staff, those people that make that all important first impression. And those frontliners that know everything about our patrons. They know their names, they know their needs. So speaking of the importance of knowing names, here we go. I couldn't say everybody else's name and not theirs. We've got Lorena, Sarah, Judy, Amanda, Sid, Max, Francisco, Pat, Molly, and John and Ellen, who also deliver books to folks who can't get to the library. They know people's reading tastes and their technology deficits, and they cater to both. And they know people's strengths and their worries, and they know what special attention they may need. And finally, we have a Vista this year who is awesome, who is Beth, and who is helping us to catalog our community. She's gathering community information so that we can better serve our patrons by referring them to the place that they need to go. So I have stories about every member of this staff that has extended themselves well beyond their duties to show incredible compassion, often to our most vulnerable patrons. They are truly remarkable to a person, but what they are not is social workers. And that may be the biggest increase that we've seen. It's not that we don't want to try to help, or that we don't want to help, or that we don't want to try to help. It's just that we aren't trained in that field. And so we do our best, but we often feel inadequate. And that's not good for morale or for professional esteem. And it's not doing justice to those who would benefit from the case management services of a trained social worker. And it makes it incredibly difficult to conduct library work like ordering books. So remember what I said about the increased expectations and excitement and suggestions. There is, like I said, lots of good ideas, lots of good suggestions. Every day, somebody brings in another terrific potential project to add to our own list of things that the staff and the trustees, one of whom is here, want to do. Yeah, we want to do financial literacy workshops for all ages. We want to have technology classes. We want more book groups and programs, but all that takes time and attention to plan and to prepare and to produce. And we are beyond that capacity, and it's taking its toll on the staff. So the library is a microcosm of the community. Despite the global shutdowns, the library continues to be expansive. We welcome people and we meet them where they are. So we had this recent survey and forums as part of our planning process, but what we heard over and over again was what people wanted was a place to come together, to experience common humanity, and that's the library. I've had incredible conversations, including one with a retiree who had suffered a terrible personal loss. He told me he lived alone and he just needed to talk to somebody, and he knew to come to the library. Our survey also shows the need and desire for outreach and taking the library beyond the building. But again, that takes more staff time. But what I want you to know is that I and the staff know that it's an honor to do this work. We love this work. And honestly, I can't think of a better place to do it in the whole wide world. So I thank you for your support, and I look forward to continuing our good work of saving the world through libraries. Yeah. So do you want to talk money?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Wow. Let's talk money. Do you want to, so board members, do you want to just ask questions on light items, or sorry, did you want to go through any of the?
Well, I just wanted to say that, there is a 10% increase in the staff salary line, but that doesn't indicate an increase in positions. It's the step increases and the COLA, things like that, so there's that to say. And there is a decrease in the replacement books because the endowment budget has taken on some of that expense. And there is a 20% or $2,000 increase in the digital subscriptions line. And part of that reason is, those keep going up and up and up, and we're sort of at their mercy. And we do have a new catalog interface, which you may have seen. It's very nice. And it will also show you digital materials that are available when you dial up a title. It'll say, oh yeah, we have this, and then we have it in an audio download and an ebook download and all these other things. So that's improving our patron experience. But it also will cost, and like I said, the price just keeps going up on those. Not as bad as the deaf though.
All right. Thank you so much for full presentation, Star. Questions and comments from select board members? I've got a couple. I will. Tim.
I got one or two. Thank you for such a warm and people-filled summary. I always enjoy that, Star. I'm glad you mentioned the endowment, because in past years, some of our newer board members might not remember or know that there's been projects, large money projects that have had to be taken care of, and the town has come to the library trustees and asked if there could be buy-in, chip in on these projects. I seem to recall the windows might have been one of them, or
the windows weren't, but the trustees did pay for half of the new HVAC system, which was
huge.
monumental.
Yeah.
And certainly, and the trustees covered the entire cost of the renovation, which created that teen space and the meeting space.
Yep.
The trustees also
Elevator.
paid to have the entire ceiling replaced, which it transformed the spaces.
Yeah.
The lights.
The lights, yes, the lights.
which are
That
so
was it.
beautiful.
Thank you.
So that wasn't to suggest that the endowment should be doing more. It's to encourage you to, when you come before us, I think it's really important to point out that the endowment, I think you mentioned the replacement. I think it went by a little fast, so I didn't quite catch it. But if you want to make sure that the public understands that the endowment is chipping in as well, I think that helps really show the symbiotic relationship.
Thank
Try
you.
using that word again.
Thank you so much for that opportunity, because you're right. So yes, when we got our first large bequest, the very first thing the trustees did was to take on some of the usual expenses so that we could restore ours, because ours had been cut due to, everybody scaling down. And the trustees have always had the public in as their first priority. What does the public want? What does the public need? And so they took up much of the materials expenses, things like that. And then again, with the public in mind, several years ago, the endowment took on even more town expenses to eliminate fines, which is a huge equity issue. And most libraries around the country have followed our lead. It wasn't really our lead. We beat them to it, a lot of them. And and again, they have absorbed those costs. So some of the things they took on were the adult books. So when I look at what is in the town budget, it's $6,000. The endowment picks up $25,000. And so the endowment is paying for 81% of the adult books purchased for the library. Reference sources, the town still does pay the bulk of that, but the endowment pays 25%. The children's books, the town still, it pays 61%. The endowment covers 39%. Young adult books, those teens, the endowment is 52% and the town is 48%. Newspapers and periodicals are pretty much split, but non-print materials, so that's any kind of audio book, audio download, DVDs, anything, obviously, if it's not print, the endowment covers 76% of. So, and then the other things that the endowment took on were all the programming costs. No taxpayers pay for any programming, or no tax dollars, I should say, pay for any programming. And also any professional development, any continuing education, anything like that. Also any upkeep of the fine arts collection and the local history collection. And then we do seek out grants as well. We've had some archive work done, through grants. So thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
That was
thank
great.
you. And I recommend anybody who doesn't know the story of is it Ronald or Richard Reed?
Ronald Reed, spelled R-E-A-D.
Yep.
There you go.
Oh, boy.
It's quite a story for anybody who's not familiar with it. So it's.
And sadly, and so what happens is on the first of the year, the endowment looks at our current holdings and does a 4% draw, which is the best practice to handle an endowment. And then they allocate our budget around that. Now, I will say, it's been a tough year. And so we lost about $500,000 out of our endowment. But I've been assured it's going to come back.
Yeah.
It'll come back. It'll come back anymore. We're buying low right now.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the guiding principle of the, I don't know if you can speak for the trustees, but like, is the guiding principle for allocations kind of like, should taxpayers be paying for this, or is this not really a taxpayer thing? And it should be something, is that kind of where the allocation is determined, or?
Well, it sort of speaks to what Tim says, about this symbiotic relationship. It's cooperative, it's collaborative.
Yeah.
That really, yes, it is a municipal library. It would be great if the town covered all the materials costs, but we also realize budget decisions are value decisions, right? Yeah. And so we value the staff and we value, above all, the community. And so we want to work to have the best possible library. Yeah. And it is a town-owned building, and yet the trustees have invested heavily in it, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and we have a trustee here.
Yeah.
It's a trustee.
Yeah. Thank you for your work on that, Kate. Other board members, questions, comments? I've got a couple more. All right, Daniel.
Yeah. I'm glad that Tim brought up the read bequest. It's a really important part of how the library is able to provide such robust and, as you say, expansive, services and offerings. I feel like I've said this in previous budget years, but the library is kind of the community hub. It's one of the few spaces that is really open to everybody and invites everybody and meets people where they're at. And during your time as the library director, I feel like that's been a hallmark of how you've done your work, and I appreciate it. And your staff as well. I used to use the library when I was an alternative school teacher, and I would work there during the day, and it was so accommodating and helpful. And I think the growth in the in the young adult offerings has been really, really important for the community. And Star, you and I have talked, in passing around the challenges that the library faces, and you brought some of those up. I heard you say we're not social workers, but yes, and social workers are in our community. And so I wonder, what collaborations may be afoot, or maybe, worth considering with agencies that do provide those kinds of services. Because I think one of the values of the library is it's a warm, friendly, kind of trusted space. I mean, I work right around the corner and see people in our office on Grove Street, but also kind of thinking, should we be running workshops or something in the library, because maybe people will be happier coming there. I don't know. So I want to kind of offer up collaboration around some of the more challenging stuff. I'm here for it. I'm sure other people are as well. We have community safety fund money that, honestly, it's been frustrating to me that we've had to kind of spin our wheels with that all year long. And we've had good reason for doing so. You know, with the change in the town manager's office, it's been unreasonable for us to expect us to kind of come up with a better process, well, to establish a process for that fund this year. It's the same story with ARPA, really, you know, and I want to kind of put it out there to my fellow board members that perhaps in January, we want to have some preliminary discussions around those two funds in particular. Because I think as we're in budget season and some of the conversations that have been going on in the town over the last year, it speaks to innovative ways to fund work that is not currently happening in our community. And I could really see the library playing some kind of role, but I don't see necessarily the library line item budget playing that role, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just kind of want to throw that out there and see where it lands.
If I could, thank you. That is wonderful. And you're right. You know, we're not trained as social workers, and yet I always say I do library work as social work, you know, and I use materials as tools, but it's really the people. And so I think I know we have in the past, we had a relationship with a social worker from Groundworks who would swing through on a daily basis. That was wonderful, wonderful. It was magic to see her work and just to make contact with people that weren't making their way to Groundworks. And that was several years ago. But I think there's really, there's a huge need. And there's a need for us to be able to call somebody, to be able to, when we've got somebody that's in crisis or bordering on crisis, or just really looks like they need some help. You know, a young woman who is sleeping on the street, you know, we need somebody to call. You know, I could tell that young woman, you know, you could probably find help here and here and here, but it would be great if there was somebody who was really trained and knows how to manage cases and help people in that way. So that's very exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, collaboration, absolutely. And in fact, I just met with Sue and Samba last week. So we're hoping to do some work there. And I spoke with Malika at HCRS, and I've chatted with the folks at Youth Services. So we're working on some stuff.
Feel free to come and chat with us at SEP.
I will.
Yeah. And I just have to sort of, this is kind of like philosophical, I guess, but with both you and fire here tonight, I mean, both these departments have stepped up during an unprecedented need in our town, and certainly police, and certainly rec and parks too. I mean, all departments are seeing the pressures, and not sure where I was going with that, but just want to recognize that it's our employees that are stepping up to do this work as best they can, even though they are largely not social workers. It's a lot of the work that's needed. So thank you again. And thank you, Fire.
Liz?
I just wanted to mention that you could save a lot of money using the library, and that they have this new rental program. And it's
Canopy.
handy, you know, you can rent food equipment and you can rent lawn equipment. And if you're going to buy something, check with the library first. You can probably rent it.
Can I just,
Yes.
so if I could, thank you, Liz. I did have that on my list and I forgot to mention it. And thank you so much. And that totally kudos to Stephen Dotson. He really found that grant and got it through. And that's why we have that. And again, those are those fantastic volunteers that handle that program. We've had great luck with that. And again, no tax funds were spent on that entire project. It was all grants from one place or another. And I'm really, really sorry, Liz, to correct a select board member. I'm so sorry, but you never rent from the library. You borrow from the library. Yeah, we don't like to charge money. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Liz, for that. And I think if it hadn't come up tonight, I wouldn't bring it up. But I this year, when I was studying for the bar exam, took like immense opportunity to just be at the library as much as I possibly could. And at really weird times of the day where I never would be there usually, because I would be at the office. And so it has made me really reflect and really understand again how the library is like one of those front-facing interfaces with this community that like is a critical and essential service that we provide. And I'm just so grateful for the work that you do, of all the wonderful staff members, and I've really gotten to know some of them, and it's really I am so appreciative for all the work they're doing. And I think my only question would be, when it comes to the struggle with some of what we've spoken about tonight, I can't imagine that our library is the only library that is struggling with this, because this, like, libraries are one of those last free places where someone can be, and that's like true across the country. And so I wonder, have you all had any conversations with other community libraries in Vermont or in our region? And does anyone have any creative solutions to sort of any of these problems? And if so, can we start looking at funding?
Yeah, you are so right. And it's not a new problem at all. When I started, over 4 decades ago, at Berkeley Public Library, this was a severe problem at that time, and everything's gotten more intense. And so it's not just Brattleboro, it's everywhere. And there are whole trainings, around working with folks that are struggling and in dismay. And so I know there has been a lot of talk regionally about hiring social workers. San Francisco has had a social worker on their library staff for probably over 10 years that has an office in the building.
Yeah.
And so there has been discussion at library conferences and on listservs about, how they can do that. I like the idea of collaborating with other agencies. And I prefer that, partly because I don't know where we'd put a social worker in our building. But again, to have one nearby that would make regular visits and be on call, be available to be reached. That would be amazingly helpful.
This on-call idea is an amazing idea for community safety funds, I think.
Yeah.
2 things.
Daniel.
As a librarian, I'd be curious. Sorry, I don't know why that's so funny. I'd be curious about like the evaluation of the effectiveness of, like, say, for example, that embedded social worker. I'm presuming that there've been some kind of studies around that. So if you have that information and you want to share it with us, great. And then secondly, kind of coming back to the community safety fund, but more specifically the recommendations, one of the recommendations is like I believe the term was freak out space. And the library isn't that, right? The library isn't that, but we're a place like that available in the community. Perhaps people who needed to do that would know that there's a safe place to go. And that would kind of relieve some of the burden on you guys. And I'm not, that's a recommendation in the community safety report that is still TBD, right? But I just want to kind of put it in there that we already have some work that's gone on that might point us in directions to help with some of these things.
So, a freak out space, we could all use that at some point.
This is my freak out space.
The select board meeting room. Yeah. I hear that too.
We feel it.
So as to the effectiveness, the fact that San Francisco's had a social worker for over 10 years speaks to some of that. And just seeing the brief period where we had the groundwork social worker coming in, I saw the effectiveness of that. That's, it's all anecdotal, it's qualitative instead of quantitative, but that's certainly there. We also had our Vista is investigating some social work schools who place interns in libraries. So there's that possibility as well. And then I do have to say, I said I had a story of compassion from every single staff member. There is a person in the community who many of you know and will have encountered, who usually just sort of passes through the library and just does a quick loop and is not disruptive when she's in there. And one day she came in and she was having a really bad day. And I sat and spoke with her for a little bit, but Max, our desk person, had observed her on many other occasions and knew that she liked dogs. And once she had sort of settled down, he got the American Kennel Club book and brought it and just set it on the table and slid it towards her. And, and that was that human touch that she needed. And then she calmed herself and looked at pictures of dogs. So that's the kind of staff we have.
I think it was a canine touch.
That is true. It was the canine touch.
All right, board, if I don't have any other questions right now, I'll open it up to public. I'm going to look to Zoom first. I don't see any.
Yes, Star, you guys are wonderful. I do want to make a comment to the board about the last year I've been building a new business. And I was told from the Brattleboro business down on Cotton Mill Hill to come up to the library and look, to talk to Jeannie actually about the Foundation Center. I went in and I did talk with Jeannie, and I realized that Brattleboro has something there that hardly any town in southern Vermont has. And that is the connection to the Foundation Center. Otherwise, it would cost $1,200 to $1,500 a person to go in and use that. And that's where that great jump was from 400 to 900. Yeah, I was right in there too. Okay. And the other is Matt is incredible. Both Jeannie and Matt are great techs at what they're doing. And I can't believe that they get paid a nominal fee for something somebody else would get 30, 35, 45, 50. I mean, I'm used to paying $50 to $100 an hour for techs. And yet now I can go into the library and it takes Matt 5 minutes to clear up something and I don't have to pay for the whole hour. And that's amazing. And now I have to wait in line. But yes, the library is where everybody who wants knowledge. I mean, I understand the other social part, but it is a place of dreams that can come true for anybody if they're willing to work towards it, because that's where you get all your information. Thank you, Star.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you. Yeah. Kate, you good?
He knows all about it.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I do see a hand.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so delighted to be tuning in during a fun moment.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, first of all, that the new tool library has been wonderful for us as new homeowners. It was really great to have that as a resource. And also looking at this budget, I'm seeing that the library's electric bills have gone down significantly. And it seems like, is this a consequence of renovation and more efficiency, or what's happening here? Because it's so wonderful to see, you had between fiscal year 22 and 23, you went from 24,000 to 18,000.
So
Hooray, whatever's happening there.
So we did have the LED lights put in, but also I'm sorry to bring everybody back to a bit of a downer note, but we were also close to the public for a lot of that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't restore our full hours till May. So, but we did save a lot on electricity.
That was true all over town.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks,
Good
Eli.
eye, though.
Thanks, Eli.
Yes, good eye.
Congratulations, new homeowner. Good deal.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You gotta go up to the microphone if you're gonna. Sorry.
We do need more time with Jeannie and Matt. We definitely need more time with it. I'm seeing lines now, so they're really getting too busy. I know Matt didn't take lunchtime because he had to work with me. Yeah, because I came in and it was an emergency for my business, so he took that time with me. And because he was booked for the whole day. And Jeannie's the same way. She's really busy doing all that research. So they do need that extra. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I don't see, so are there any other questions or comments? Select board?
No, I don't have any. No.
Okay. Star, thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming and for being here in person. We really appreciate it. There's not really any motion here. Right?
No, sir. No motion coming next, though, if you're not careful.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's gonna conclude the budget discussion for the FY24 budget tonight. We're gonna have another special meeting next Tuesday, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And where we'll continue the budget discussion. Patrick, you want to give a little teaser trailer? Do you remember what they are?
I have a pretty good idea. So we've got the little departments. So that would be the town manager's office, the finance department, the town clerk's office. That would be things like general services, auxiliary services, employee benefits, little things.
Little Baltic states of Brattleboro municipal.
Yes, the Baltic states.
Budget.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, great.
NATO allies, one and all.
NATO allies, one and all. All right, so you heard it here first. Board members, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Yes, Daniel has moved to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, BCTV.